Good morning. We have two scripture readings this morning. The first from the book of Exodus, chapter 20. Do not utter the name of the Holy One to misuse it, for the Holy One will not acquit anyone who utters God's name to misuse it. And from the book of Matthew, chapter 12. Therefore, I tell you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgiven, except for blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. Anyone who speaks a word against the promised one will be forgiven, but anyone who speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in this age or in the next. Ancient words for present-day consideration.
Welcome. Thank y'all for being here. Well, we're in a sermon series that it's a little strange, unlike my other sermon series. What we're trying to do is look at parts of the tradition that fell out, and they're typically kind of pillars of sanity. And when you look at what the church is doing to our nation and to our world, it's really important to realize it doesn't have to be this way. That religion doesn't have to be about judgment. It doesn't have to be about hate. It doesn't have to be about pretending to be something that you're not or believe something that you don't. So in this series, we started with looking at one understanding of the first commandment, although they're not really commandments, they're more like insights. When you see the Decalogue, that's 10 words, it's not 10 commandments. And they really make less sense if you call them commandments, because it's the story of liberation. Exodus is a story of liberation from bondage. And the idea that the whole point was to rescue you from earthly dictators so you could have a heavenly dictator, that's not very inspirational to me. Love wouldn't do that. Love would want you to be free. Love would want you to blossom completely. So the first commandment is the I am, is the divine name. I'll go ahead and put, this is, I think, a kind of bad understanding of the third commandment. You may remember that Monty Python, which is very formative in my theology. Do you remember somebody had halibut that was very good, and they said, this is good enough for Jehovah? And everybody gathered with stones and it's just how silly it is to understand the third commandment as a commandment against cussing or using God's name that way. God is not God's name. Remember, it's this mystical experience that Moses has at the burning bush. It's the pattern of things. It's the fact that the universe has math written into it. Moses is looking at a burning bush and understanding every bush, every animal, everything is radiating out of this depth. The second commandment is don't worship your sense images of that mystical experience. If you go to the mountaintop and you have this great revelation, it's important to realize what was important was the awareness. That's not just available on that mountain, and yet that's what worshiping our images are. The church is the guiltiest place in terms of idolatry. It teaches you to worship certain ideas of God, particularly masculinity. I mean, I know people that say God is a mystery, we know nothing about him. Well, you do know one thing, or at least you think you know one thing about it. So that indoctrination is so insidious. that it's important to realize that the second commandment, the second suggestion, the second insight is don't worship your idea. For centuries in this country, people worshiped a white Christ. Did that have any problems? Did it make anything unpleasant for some other people? I think it kind of did. And I think that's what the second insight is, that whatever we mean by the sacred is transcendent. It doesn't look more like some of us than others. But if we worship an image of God, it's going to restrict where and how we can experience the sacred, whatever it is. Now we're at the third commandment, and I believe this is about not getting lost in language, not getting lost in labels, not getting lost in theological arguments, but staying in tune with that mystery, that sense of I am. I have some quotes that are from not very pious people, which is why I like them. This is like one of my big heroes, somebody if you've never read, Robert Greene Ingersoll is a great atheist and one of the great human beings of all time. So if you want to get past the indoctrination that you have to worship a certain idea of God, Ingersoll is a great way to get somebody who loves humankind as much as anybody does, somebody who rejoices at the universe and the beauty of nature without needing all of the particular paraphernalia of the Christian faith. So he says, this crime called blasphemy was invented by priests for the purpose of defending doctrines not able to take care of themselves. How dare he? How dare he blame it on the clergy? So, then this is also from Ingersoll. An infinite God ought to be able to protect itself. He said himself, which shows you even an atheist can. An infinite God ought to be able to protect themselves without going in partnership with state legislatures. And this is Ricky Gervais, who has some problems with religion. It almost seems like he's against it. Blasphemy, a law to protect an all-powerful supernatural deity from getting its feelings hurt. Okay. Well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? One of the things, in addition to realizing that the Ten Commandments are not rules, they're not really commandments, is to not think of this, whatever the source of this, as a critic or a judge, and see it as a love letter that's been sent to you to help you from losing the kind of sacred core and ground of your being. It makes all the difference in the world between if the third saying is, if you stub your toe, don't say GD. Now, I'm not recommending that you do, but I know I swear like a sailor some days. So that's not what it's about. It's not against cussing. It's about something deeper and much more profound than that. But when you think about this coming from a friend, it's more realizing how we lose our happiness. That when you cuss, the problem isn't that you say GD. The problem is that you're unhappy. Right? Now, if you cuss when you're happy, there's not a problem there. It's silly to think you shouldn't say certain words. That's silly. But there's also a despair that gets expressed when we're off balance, when we feel alone, when we don't feel like how we're living matters. So we've gone through the first 3 commandments. Today we're looking at the third. In the Protestant tradition, this is not true if you're Catholic. They're numbered differently, which the people that want to force the 10 commandments down everybody's throats don't seem to realize. They're numbered differently by the different denominations. So I think there are 3 suggestions that are here. Number 1 is taking the sacred name in vain means not seeing the burning bush in yourself. You get lost in words and you lose your sacred core. The second is not seeing the burning bush in others, getting lost in labels, positions, these verbal definitions that block communication. And then finally, not seeing the burning bush in the whole life process itself. Because if modern science and the ancient mystics agreed on anything, it's that life is ecological. It doesn't just belong to individuals. It's something we share. We're cells in a common body. And our happiness is tied to that interwovenness. So let's look at the first idea. And again, this is, could we go to get Monty Python out of here? Remember, that's the divine name. You didn't say it in that way. It might be pronounced Yahweh, which means I'm going to hell now if I said it right. Which is a shame if you think about it. But in the past, they thought it was Jehovah, and that's the name that they use in the Monty Python thing. But neither Hebrew nor Greek has a J. So that can't be what you say to get you in trouble. Jesus would not know who you were talking to. You realize that if they didn't have a J in those languages, it wasn't Jesus. That's the divine name. It's this experience, this deeper sense of where you come out of. Without that, life seems very hollow. So this third insight may be about living from your roots that go into this mystery. To not be superficial, to not get lost in pretending, just saying words because you were taught that. It sounds like I have something against the Apostles' Creed, and I really don't. What I have a problem is if that has replaced the sacred experience. I was raised in the Presbyterian faith without the slightest suggestion that there was a mystery happening at the core of my life, in the core of my being. I was taught answers to questions I wasn't asking. They call it catechism, you may remember. It was all words. And it doesn't make the words bad and evil to say that's not the heart. That's not what you're longing for as a human being. That's not what you're thirsting for as a human being. What if this third suggestion is coming from a loving friend, maybe a cosmic friend, but someone who isn't sitting there judging you for making mistakes? So, some of the older of you will remember Neil Diamond. Like if you're children, you may not remember that. But he had a song called I Am, I Said, which is really interesting in today's context. Why would the divine name be translated as I am so many times if it's not calling you to the root of your being? If it's not words that are attempting to lead you past words into this sense of who you are in the universe. So in the first part, he talks about he's kind of lost his roots. He's gotten famous now. He's in Los Angeles, which is, beautiful, wonderful, but it's not home. And he tries to get back to New York, and it's not, he says, it's not mine anymore. Let me read the verse. He goes, nowadays I'm lost between two shores. LA's fine, but it ain't home. New York's home, but it ain't mine anymore. I said, to no one there. And no one heard it all, not even a chair, which is maybe the most pathetic reach for a rhyme in all of literature. And maybe if he had more time. But you get the scenario that he's experiencing. He's probably in a motel room, and he's got all this fame, and he's gone back home, and he's alone. Bone-chillingly alone. I cried. I am, said I, and I am lost, and I can't even say why, leaving me lonely still. Isn't it wonderful that an artist would share that kind of vulnerability? That you can have everything externally. And if you don't have the sense of your own roots into the universe, it feels like you're afloat. It feels like you're untethered. So this is a call into your own depths. It's not a criticism of you as a person. I would not have the presumption, too many of you know me, to say, don't curse, don't cuss. One of my most horrifying memories, and there are a lot of them, but one of my most horrifying is when I was in seminary the last semester. I was working on a double degree. I had like 4 little jobs that I was doing and going around, and I was having like stress headaches, migraines. So I was sometimes not in a very good mood. And I'm cleaning the chapel late at night, and the plug pulls out. Now at this point, I'm Joan of Arc. I've suffered, and now this cord pulls out. So I let loose a string of inappropriate words, words I deeply regret. And the reason I regret them is because I turned around and the president of the seminary was there. He and his lovely wife were sitting. To their credit, they pretended like they didn't hear it. I don't know if they did or not. They heard it. Probably. If the first insight is about the burning bush, I think what it's saying is you are the burning bush. This isn't something you just see externally. Jesus said you were a light shining out of the darkness. That is literally who you are. Leave religion aside for a second. Just think of the cosmos. Think of the Webb and Hubble telescopes. All of that churning that's taking place in the cosmic sphere. And so far as we know yet, yours is the only consciousness that rises above that. That through you, the universe itself rises up, looks at itself, and says yes. You are a miracle. It may be within the laws of physics, but it's still a freakish miracle that you are able to sit there and be conscious and aware. If you think about it, your consciousness may be the most valuable substance in the universe. Now, there's lots of stuff we don't know yet, but you think about how we trade that off as though it's worthless. The third suggestion is saying, don't use the name. Don't trade it off. Don't think that you can use this sacred moment to get something that's better than you. That's a sense of hollowness that you don't deserve. There is nothing outside of you that's worth more than what is inside you. So that light shining in you should not be suffocated by words, by theologies, by doctrines, by dogmas, by the dress-up game that many of us were taught in the church. Pretend that you believe something. Just pretend it. It's okay. I don't believe it either, but if you just pretend. I'll never forget when I was getting ready to go before Presbytery, one of the ministers, and I say, I don't know if I can pass this thing. And one of the ministers, it's okay, we all lied to get in. Maybe that's a problem. So to realize how incredibly important that light within you is. And maybe that's what Buddha meant when he said, be a light to yourself. Be your own lantern. Then the second thing is not seeing the burning bush in others. Not being able to see past your labels. Not being able to relate to somebody who has nothing to give you. That's also using the divine name for something that's less. A lot of times people try to get me to get excited about different systems of understanding human beings. And I think those are all, it can be helpful things. But I think they all also can be trying to understand human beings like we understand objects. To fit them on a grid, to measure them, to be able to diagram what the qualities are. And I think what the second suggestion or insight is reminding us is, you have to see the other as completely other, or you're not seeing them at all. If you see them in your life plans, in your designs, in your beliefs, you're not seeing the cosmic mystery that's shining in front of you. And if I cannot see that in you, I'm absolutely alone. It's like the song goes, when I've only got this right here, when I can't see the mystery shining through, it feels very lonely. When you can love others as other, you don't have to control them, you don't have to possess them, and yet that light feeds you. So just as Moses took his sandals off in the presence of the burning bush, to set aside for a moment your psychology, to set aside for a moment your theology, and just relish the mystery that's shining in front of you. Other people are your window into the depths of the name. Here's the last point for the morning. Again, you're welcome to come up with 30 more if you want. But that is not seeing the burning bush in life itself. When you give up on life, when you kind of renounce life itself, that can be desperately lonely. And so the Christian texts that we use say it's okay to blaspheme anybody else but the Holy Spirit. Now it lists the chosen one. So it's okay to blaspheme Jesus. And things will get better. It's okay to blaspheme God and things will get better. But if you blaspheme the Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, I don't think anything's unforgivable. But that makes it a lot harder for you to receive the love that's there for you. If you open up a flower, always has the sun trying to give itself. But if the flower won't open, then it doesn't really matter what the sun does. The divine name is a symbol of the intelligence written all through creation, all through the universe. And you don't have to believe anything to realize this incredible intelligence that's throbbing in everything. Let's go to the... Obviously, this is the periodic chart. Have you ever realized how strange the universe is? That these subatomic particles that have no qualities whatsoever can be rearranged to create everything there is. You take two hydrogen atoms, put them with one oxygen. I can't, tell you what that creates because you wouldn't understand. But think about that. You take two atoms of one gas, mix it with an atom of another gas, and you have a liquid. And you move these things around, and all the different qualities of the universe are there in that little chart. That's one version of the divine name. DNA is another version of the divine name. The ancients tried to get as close to it as they could. But there's an intelligence that's weaving your life together with everything else. When we say no to life as a whole, there's a poverty inside us that nothing can really cure. Now, I don't believe in unforgivable sin, but I do believe that despair can make it really hard. That's in the Zoroastrian religion. That's the unforgivable sin is despair, because you stop trying. You stop even looking or listening for any kind of love or beauty or goodness. When I had graduated from college, we're doing the musical stuff. That was when the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff happened. Then this musical partner that I'm with has some links to the Doobie Brothers. We were nowhere near good enough, but that was very exciting. So I've graduated, I've finished college, thank God. I'm walking down the road, have every reason to be happy, no reasons to be sad. And somebody comes up behind me, I see the lights, and they're gonna play chicken with me. Right, they're coming right close to the curb, and I'm supposed to jump up on the curb in fear. And I go, no way. So I stay out in the street, and the person steers around. When I get finished, I said, what did I just do? Does my life mean so little to me that I wouldn't even preserve myself, step to the curb? And I had this kind of weird moment where I kind of committed a happy suicide and said, if my life means so little to me, why not give it away? Why not? I mean, if it's not worth stepping up on a curb, maybe I can bring joy to other people and meaning to other people. That idea that life has no meaning is really easy to fall into if we haven't given ourselves to life. Once you've given yourself to life, then you see opportunities everywhere. Your life is a part of a much greater life. And even if circumstances don't make sense for you, and they're not enough for you to want to keep going, if you'll consider your larger life and what you could mean to other people, I think it will change that equation radically and deeply. I think that's what that third commandment is about, saying yes to life itself. So I don't believe that this third suggestion is about cussing. If it is, I'm in trouble. But it's stupid, right? I mean, it's dumb to say those syllables makes you bad. But it makes perfect sense. If this is a suggestion coming from a friend that says this is where your pain is really coming from, it's when you let yourself get untethered from the root of your being and you just live superficially. You let words replace the mystical experience. Or you live life at a distance. You just treat other people as objects. You understand them through labels, through formula, instead of the ravishing mystery that they can be. And finally, when we don't say life to itself as a whole, there's a misery that follows us that I think whoever it is that wrote this ancient tablet loved us too much to leave us there. I want to close with something by Anne Lamott that I think is a positive way of saying these things. Your problem is how you are going to spend this odd and precious life you have been issued. Whether you're going to spend it trying to look good and creating the illusion that you have power over people and circumstances, or whether you are going to taste it, enjoy it, and find out the truth about who you are. Well, these are my struggles with this text. We'll take a moment now for you to think how you would have preached it.